Hey everyone, my name's Thomas. I wanted to document my journey with having an Achilles rupture. This is my, let me see, third, Thursday, Friday. It's actually my third or fourth day since I ruptured it. I want to document this journey uh, of the experience, the options you have, and their actual rehabilitation, to help anyone that's out there that may have also experienced this devastating injury. It sucks. You can't, you really are immobilized, and it's one of the biggest tendons in the body, the Achilles. It is the biggest tendon. And so I wanted to kind of let you know how it happened. So I'm a pretty active individual. Like, I do a lot of, say, kettlebell training. I started running a few months back, really for the first time, like extensive running. And I started running on a treadmill until I pulled my calf muscle on my left leg. And I stopped running. Running on a treadmill, not a great idea. You have zero hamstring activation almost because the belt is moving. Running on the road with good shoes and proper gait, meaning how you run. You can become a really good runner if you practice and train. But I started running on a treadmill. I live in Canada, so the weather kind of sucked outside, and I wasn't going to run in the snow or the ice. So I stopped running, but I started getting like pain in my Achilles, like just intermittent kind of pain after I've done some exercise that had some flexion in my ankle. It wasn't all the time, but certain activities aggravated it, and I was complaining about it, and I went and got treated, I think, one time for my calf, and told my therapist that my Achilles was kind of aggravated, and that tendon connects into your calf, so I assume it's kind of all related. Um, I've also never been a really big advocate for stretching. I didn't say advocate. I just never did it. I think stretching is really important. It's just, I was complacent with it. Now I'm 34 years old, and that's going to matter when I tell you some statistics about Achilles ruptures. I've been doing some of my own research, reading some of the new science that's out in terms of like the protocols for rehabilitation and operative versus non-operative, meaning surgical versus non-surgical procedures, and the outcomes of a surgical and non-surgical. But let's start with what happened. I was actively playing basketball, not very, like, somewhat competitive, right, for points and stuff like that. I would play on teams and stuff every Wednesday, um, and sometimes twice a week. And I that kind of picked up, and I've been playing for maybe 2 months now. Uh, had some crappy shoes. Had to buy some new shoes, so that probably didn't help. Uh, I didn't really have any aggravation while I was playing. But if I'm being honest, like the next day, I think, overall, other than just my body being sore, I think my ankles were a little irritated. But I just figured there's a lot of quick movements in basketball, right? A lot of stop and goes, a lot of explosive takeoffs, and kind of pump fake, and you go to the right or you go to the left. A lot of dynamic movements. And on April 17th, I was playing, and maybe I was about 30 minutes into playing. I get the ball, I take a step to the right, take a step to the left, and then I step forward, and I just fall to my knees. And the best way I can explain it is, music was playing. So typically you would hear a pop with an Achilles rupture, but because the music probably drowned it out. but it felt like someone had really forcefully kicked me in the back of the ankle or the calf. It almost feels like, like a baseball bat kind of hitting the back of the calf. And I looked back and I was like, what the hell, right? I was like, I thought someone had kicked me, and I was like yelling at this guy, and I felt so bad because afterwards, like, he wasn't even near me. And I even looked up to see if something had fallen and hit me in the back, but nothing. Luckily, I play with a bunch of therapists, RMTs. There was a foot doctor there, thank God. Physios. So that was fortunate because right away they kind of told me that they think it's my Achilles, and they helped me and they elevated my leg. And eventually, half an hour later, I got into my car, and luckily it wasn't my driving foot. So then I got into my car, I drove home, crawled into my house pretty much, and then had to call my wife to come help me get up the stairs and get some ice for me and elevate my leg. The next morning, I went to the hospital and got it through pretty quickly. And they did what they call a Thompson test. And basically, they kind of grab your calf muscle here, and they squeeze it, right? And you could see my kind of like my Achilles kind of activating. And it's just a test to see if you start to plant like up or down. So they did it in this one. Nothing. There was no movement. That tells you that there's a rupture, whether it's partial or full. More likely for me, it was partial because my ankle, like, it would have just been dangling, but I had some. It wasn't dangling, so I figured it was partial. They did an ultrasound. This is really important. An X-ray really won't really help unless you fractured a bone. So they may do an X-ray just to confirm that there's no fractures, but an X-ray won't actually see tendons or tendon ruptures or tendon tears. So you have to do typically an ultrasound or an MRI. So they lie me on my back, they do the Thompson test, and then they did the ultrasound, and then they found that it was, a rupture. And there's a few fibers still holding on, thank God. So what they ended up doing, and this is really important if you're ever going through this, especially in the ER, because I've heard some stories that they don't put on the cast correctly. So what they did for me is, as you can see, like if I were to put both my feet up here, right? This is where basically they have to tilt your foot down, right? Like this. And basically that's like a 20-degree. They don't need to push it so far down, just kind of more natural, just let it hang. And what that does is in the back, in the tendon, it brings it closer together so it can start to heal. And then they cast you in that 20 degrees, like plantar, I think it's called like a 20 degrees angle down. Because if it was like this, then it wouldn't bring that tendon back together in the back there. And what ends up kind of happening is that you can start to heal, but heal in a lengthened position, and that's not good because then your tendon becomes longer. So anyways, they kind of casted me, and the cast is in the back, it's not the front, so the hardness here, and it basically immobilizes your ankle so you can't move, but you can wiggle your toes. So they put me in this cast, and then they gave me a specialist appointment for this Wednesday coming up, so almost a full week from my injury. So I'll be in this cast for almost a week. This is part of the recovery, actually. Like, this is the first week of recovery. They gave me this to take back. Cautious because I've heard stories like this, and it happened to me too, is that they don't really set it up properly for you, so you gotta kind of do it yourself. And there's usually like measurements on the side of the crutch that you can adjust, but just play around with that a little bit, and just make sure that you have it adjusted to the right height. The last thing I kind of want to say is, so I actually left the hospital. I came home, and that's when things kind of start to hit, right? I don't think you can underestimate the kind of the emotional toll this takes. for me, like I have small kids, I have twin boys. I'm lucky that I have a support system. I really highly recommend you get some help during this period because you can't put any weight on this foot during the first, especially the first 2 weeks until you see your specialist, and then you decide what the protocol is going to be for rehab. I'm yet to know this. I am really been studying different protocols, especially ones since like 2018 up to now. And a lot of the research has changed or advanced. So I'm hoping that when I talk to my specialist on Wednesday that he's up to speed with the research. I'm assuming he is. So I can come in prepared of kind of what I want, what I'm looking for, and get his advice on surgical versus non-surgical. I think a lot of research right now is pointing to the non-surgical option or non-operative recovery period protocols, or non-operative, and then the recovery protocol for that seems to emphasize early mobilization and like early rehab, meaning get on your feet earlier in the process, which sounds amazing for me. Being able to stand at least and walk in a boot eventually, or can definitely help me around the house and help my wife, who's taken on most of the responsibilities right now, which is hard to watch. But get home, I got my pillows. You could probably just elevate pillows. You don't need anything fancy like this. I like it for sleeping because it doesn't really move that much. It has some grip on the bottom, which is great. Can't really see it. But this pillow is a lifesaver. And just make sure you don't run into things. With little kids, right, there's always these toys, so just make sure you can know where you can grab onto that can support your weight around the house. I still do some movements. I asked my wife to bring down a little kettlebell and do some shoulder presses, some bicep work or whatever, just because you're sitting so much. So it's really challenging for me because I worked out all the time. So that was kind of my mental break, and it cleared my head for me. So I think mental wise, it's a bit to get accustomed to and adjust. So I'm learning to do that. I will say, the pain, once it gets into the cast, the night of and the day after, it was really painful. Once it's in a cast, I've noticed that the pain is not not as much. It's kind of compressed. It's inside the cast. It's not mobilized and not moving, right? When it's not in a cast, you kind of still have movement a little bit. You almost can't control it. So that the cast definitely does help with some of the pain management. I've taken some, Advil, but I've stopped kind of doing that because I kind of want the inflammation. I want it to start healing, and this kind of prevents some of that healing. So unless you're really in pain, like I personally, I'm kind of avoiding it. Elevation, super important. I keep my foot elevated all day. I had the day after I got my cast, I worked and I was sitting at the table and my foot wasn't elevated as much as the day before or like these preceding days. And the next day, I would stand up to go to the washroom and it's just a nightmare. It was so painful. So I just feel like it was swollen a little bit. And another thing, to keep an eye on is just, ask about, blood clots and stuff, because you're not moving, right? You're demobilized. So ask your doctor about blood thinners potentially. I know I'm going to bring it up. Some people have taken aspirin. It's probably not needed, but this is not I'm not a doctor, so please, any advice here, take it with a grain of salt and talk to your doctor, or your physician, or your specialist, or your physio. But yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is understanding the recovery period. Everything I've read, regardless, is you're probably recovering for almost 9 to 12 months. That doesn't mean you're not walking, but to get to back to what you were doing before, and at the level you were doing it before, you're looking at 9 to 12 months. Some people break that rule, and but they also have a ton of money probably and different types of care, and but as long as you take your rehab extremely seriously, it sounds like you can recover very well and get full use of your ankle again and start doing things that you want to do. And my first goal, so I'm saying it here, my first goal is to be able to stand in the kitchen and help cook dinner and help cook breakfast in the morning and stuff like that. That's really my first goal. And or my big first milestone for me. So anyways, I just wanted to document my first few days. This is the first week of rupturing my Achilles on my left ankle during basketball. I think my competitive basketball days are over. It's just not worth it, to be honest. My age, I'm still young, but with my little family, and I'd rather be able to, play with my kids than risk re-rupturing. But in in the next video, hopefully I can give an update based off seeing my specialist for the first time and seeing how that went. I'll see how I feel about his recommendations, etc., and whether I need to see another specialist or not and get a second opinion. I am calling my family doctor tomorrow to set up another specialist appointment for next week, hopefully, fingers crossed, with a different ortho specialist, just so I have two opinions. I think that's really critical here, especially with something like this. It's so devastating and so just immobilizes your life. So I hope you enjoy this. I hope this helps someone that's also experiencing this. I will try to document this every week as my journey goes on and my recovery, and just talk about my home life too, right? I think that's really important, not just about the recovery, but the recovery mentally and the recovery physically as well, and just how I am at home and how I'm feeling from a mental health perspective. So thanks for joining me on this journey. I hope this helps, and peace out.